All right. Good morning to my 11:30 class. We are in the middle of we are starting problem number 6 here. This is from 7.4. We are trying to figure out the payment value. Back to draw. So we have the payment value, uh, periodic payment for this particular annuity. Okay, so my problem says we have a future value of 2.5 million at a rate of 9.57% compounded weekly. That's 52 for 38 years. We have to go through and figure all of this stuff out. So I wrote down, it said annuity, I'm writing down the annuity formula. Okay, that's the first thing I'm going to do. And now we're going to realize, okay, A is the future value. This is 2,500,000. We have to figure out R. We don't know what that is yet. Okay, so we might underline it. We're going to figure this big capital R out. Our little r is 9.57%, 0.0957. N was 52 because it's weekly, 52 weeks in a year. T, he said 38 years. All of the stuff was given. We had to go through and do that. Notice that this R over N appears a couple of times in the formula. What I'm going to want to do is calculate R over N by itself before I jump right into the problem. Okay, so go back to calculator here, clear this guy out. We'll say, okay, we want point zero zero 0.0957. So that's 9.57%. Divided by my 52 weeks per year, that's N equals, and we got 0.0184, etc. Okay. So that's just R over N. I'm going to go back and I'm going to make a little note of it, like I did right here. We're going to need this NT, and I don't want to interrupt myself in the middle of this calculation to figure out this part. So NT by itself over here, 1976. Okay, we're just going to write that down. So let's go back to our formula, back to our calculator for just a moment. So I have got R over N. I need to add 1 to it. That's what we're going to do next. 6, good. So we're going to go ahead and add 1 equals, okay, great, 1.00184. Okay, same thing. And I would suggest, like, as you're doing these problems, have a little pad of paper and just write down these quantities as you're going through them. And unfortunately, Alex is extremely sensitive and extremely picky. I'm sure you figured that out by now. Don't spare any places. Write the whole thing out from the calculator. I'd rather you do that than have to go back and do the problem 3, 4, 5, 16 times. Like, just make sure we do it this way. Okay. The next thing we had to do was to raise this to a power. What power were we raising it to? We were raising it to the NT power. Okay. Fortunately, we already calculated that. So we're just going to raise it to, so I want, you're not going to do that for me? There you go. We're going to raise it to the 1976 in order to get that equals. Now we're not done yet. Go back to our formula here. We're here. We still have to subtract 1 now. Okay, so we're going to subtract minus 1 equals. We're going to write this number down. Okay, this was, I'm going to write it down in 2 places because I've got a little pad of paper next to me, and I'm trying to show along with you guys for the ride here. So I got 36.835,875,0803. Okay, so that's this whole top part here. Okay, now we're trying to solve for R, so we don't know what that's going to be yet. We're going to divide by R over N. Fortunately, we already know what R over N is. It's this horrible number right here. So we're going to go back to our calculator. And we're going to say divided by, and we're going to say this was 0.00184038461. I know it's tedious. I'm sorry for that. Okay. But this is what we're going to have for the whole thing, equals. And now I'm going to write this number down. This is 20,015 and 31.3135818. Okay, 3135818. Okay, just going to have this number sitting here that we need to. Okay, let's go back to where we are and do a little hold up. We have calculated all of this stuff. That's a lot of work done here. Calculate all of this. But we're almost done. We're not quite done yet. So this thing here, this is going to be A equals, what was that number that we had there? This was 20015.313 5815818. Okay, R. Okay, so we haven't done R yet. We're figuring out for R. And now what we have to do is we have to divide by this horrible number here, 20015.313, 5818, both sides. What was A again? A was 2,500,000. So we're going to say 2,500,000 divided by this number, 200. So if you have an STO button on your calculator, please learn how to use it, because that's going to really help with having to not write these numbers down constantly. You can store them. You might be storing it a lot. You might be storing a lot of different numbers. That's okay. It'll overwrite it, just like your hard drive overwrites. It's fine. 588. Not going to be wearing out the memory on the calculator by doing this. Okay. But we have to figure this part out now next. Okay, so let's go back to here. And we're going to say we want 2,500,000 divided by the last thing that was in the calculator, which was this 20015. We're going to say divided by answer. That was the last thing in the calculator. So there's another little shortcut away from not having to just completely always have to type these numbers out. If you are very uncertain of yourself in the calculator, please write them out. It's not going to hurt anything. It's going to cost you a little bit more time, but that's where we are with all of that. That looks terrible, because this should be a much bigger number. So I am ending up with $124.90. This doesn't seem right. Let's try it. Is that 200? Yeah, it was. All right, let's go back to here. See what we ended up with. A periodic payment. Okay, that's what we're trying to figure out. We're not figuring out the future payment. This doesn't look bad at all. This is entirely possible as a periodic payment. So let's go back. I think this was, see, if you forget where you are on the problem, you're going to have problems. So let's go ahead and go, yeah, 124. We worked this down. Okay, good. So 124.90. Fingers are crossed. And we were going to double check this guy here. Wrong one. Great suspense here. Ta-da! Okay. Again, the more practice you get with these, the better off you're going to be doing with them. You're going to get better at doing this. The first time you do it is going to look terrible. You're going to get better with practice. So please try to practice these things. You could start with the formula, okay? You're allowed to use a calculator, right? But try not to look at the example and just keep following that. Try to see if you can't work it out on your own, because when the quiz comes, you will be afforded, like I'll tell you, like, hey, go get yourself a formula card, write the stuff down, or maybe I might send one out to you guys. Use those formulas, and then, but everything else is like you're on your own for doing this. So try to, when you're doing this thing, try to make the connection of like, what do I do first? What do I do second? What do I do third? As you're going through this, you can even make little steps when you're doing your homework. Make little notes. Step 1, step 2, step 3. So when you go back to study your notes for the quiz or for the test, you'll have an idea of what to do first, second, and third as you're going through this. As you get more practice, those first, second, and thirds, you won't need them as much, okay? But you will need them for the beginning for this thing. So I'm going to go ahead and stop our video and say we're good. So I hope that everybody is doing well with these problems. They are difficult, but you are not alone. Like, everybody who does these problems the first time realizes that they are difficult. So you're not alone if you're finding them kind of tough. You will get frustrated. I'm sorry for that. It's just the way this course is. But it doesn't stay that way. With practice, you do get better. Okay. So thank you for watching. I'll see you in the next one.